Pues entonces yo creo que este lo vamos a poner porque va a tener este prendido y ya nada.
Am, en cabina me avisan si ya empezamos. Vale, ¿ya empezamos? Gracias. Bueno, pues muy buenas tardes. Mi nombre es Zoraida García Castillo, soy directora de la Escuela Nacional de Ciencias Forenses. Me da mucho gusto saludarles a quienes están presentes esta tarde en nuestra aula magna, principalmente nuestros alumnos, nuestras alumnas, también hay profesores, profesoras y hay muchas personas también conectadas por Zoom y seguramente quienes nos están viendo también por las redes sociales de esta Escuela Nacional. Esta tarde tenemos pues una importante disertación del doctor Frank Crispino, que nos hablará sobre la Declaración de Sídney, que tiene que ver con reglas básicas propuestas para las labores de las ciencias forenses de una manera general e integral. También me complace pues, recibir a Luis Manuel Soto Uruñuela, de la Delegación General de Quebec en México. Muy bienvenido, muchas gracias por estar aquí. Y nos acompaña también en el presidium Sylvain Pinet, que él es el encargado de la Oficina Internacional de la Universidad de Quebec de Trois-Rivières, que es precisamente la universidad que nos está visitando esta semana y en donde el doctor Frank Crispino es profesor y dirige el máster en ciencias forenses en esa universidad. Voy a dar lectura a una breve semblanza del doctor Frank Crispino antes de darle la palabra, bueno, de darle la palabra a los integrantes de la mesa. El doctor Frank Crispino es antiguo alumno de la École de l'Air la Academia de la Fuerza Aérea Francesa. Cuenta con una licenciatura en Derecho, una maestría y un doctorado en Ciencias Forenses por la Universidad de Lucena, en Suiza, además de haberse graduado en la École de Guerre de Francia y acreditar un diplomado en identificación odontológica de la Universidad de Nancy, en Francia también. Después de fundar el Departamento de Antropología en el Instituto de Investigación Criminal de la Gendarmería Nacional, participó en la creación de la Unidad Francesa de Identificación de Víctimas de Catástrofes y posteriormente dirigió el Departamento de Identificación Dactiloscópica. Su carrera la llevó a dirigir investigaciones criminales sobre delitos graves, delincuencia organizada y terrorismo como jefe de las secciones de investigación, departamentos de investigación criminal de las regiones centro de la ciudad de Bourg, ok, y suroeste de la ciudad de Bordeaux. Ah, ok, sí, por eso me lo sé. Su última asignación en la Gendarmería consistió en integrar la inteligencia criminal del ARCGN, convirtiéndolo en el sector judicial de la Gendarmería Nacional. En 99 y 2002 fue comisionado como jefe del proyecto europeo y asesor forense de la Oficina del Asesor Especial para la Lucha contra el Terrorismo de la Unión Europea en Cisjordania y la Franja de Gaza, y a su regreso de Palestina también se desempeñó como director adjunto de la Oficina Antiterrorismo de la Gendarmería Francesa. El coronel Crispino se convirtió en 2012 en profesor de la Universidad de Quebec en Tres Ríos, creando un programa de licenciatura en ciencia forense y dedicándose a la enseñanza de las ciencias forenses y a la investigación. Sus líneas de investigación abarcan la ontología del indicio, la interpretación de la prueba y la inteligencia con un enfoque semiótico propio de lo forense. Es autor de 4 libros, 13 capítulos de libros y más de 80 artículos en revistas especializadas. Actualmente ocupa el cargo de director de programas de posgrado en ciencias forenses y química y el de director del grupo de investigación en ciencias forenses, ambos en la Universidad de Tres Ríos en Quebec. Antes de darle la palabra al doctor Crispino para su disertación, le daré la palabra a Luis Manuel Soto Uruñuela, de la Delegación General de Quebec, que nos visita acompañando al doctor Crispino y a toda la comitiva que viene de la Universidad de Tres Ríos de Quebec, para conocer cuáles son los trabajos de esta delegación de Quebec en México y cómo es que su intervención fue propicia para que estén aquí nuestros visitantes de la Universidad de Tres Ríos. Adelante.
Muchas gracias, doctora. Bueno, pues muy buenos días, tardes ya a todas y a todos. Bonjour à tous y à toutes. A nombre de nuestra delegada general, Estefanía Lar Gómez, quien no nos pudo acompañar esta tarde, pero que les manda un caluroso saludo. Pues nuestro sincero agradecimiento por permitirnos tomar la palabra en el marco de este magno evento y un saludo muy especial a nuestros anfitriones del ENACIF, a la doctora Zoraida García Castillo y al profesor Luis Giro Susuri Hernández. Je tiens également à souligner la présence des représentants de l'Université de Québec à Trois-Rivières, professeur Franck Crispino, Sylvain, collègues. Votre présence ici témoigne les potentiels et l'intérêt manifeste par développeurs des partenariats avec les institutions mexicaines. Bueno, un poquito de francés nada más para saludar a nuestros compatriotas. Y bueno, es para nosotros de verdad un privilegio presenciar de primera mano cuando las colaboraciones y proyectos que debemos pasar en papel. Yo soy uno de los evaluadores de esa convocatoria, pues de cómo ideas innovadoras se vuelven realidad gracias al ímpetu de los socios tanto quebequenses como mexicanos, quienes son los verdaderos artesanos y tejedores de estas impresionantes redes de colaboración institucional que son el corazón de la relación bilateral entre Quebec y México. Y bueno, lo que es más, ante un auditorio tan impresionante y de la mano de una universidad del nivel de la UNAM, con quien tenemos el gusto de colaborar en varios rubros. Hace algunas semanas, no sé si conozcan el CISAN de la Facultad de Ciencias Sociales, el Centro de Estudios de América del Norte, nos invitaron a participar en un ciclo de charlas y eventos para celebrar los 80 años ya de relaciones diplomáticas entre México y Canadá. Y hace algunos meses estuvimos también en el Instituto de Ingeniería para el lanzamiento de una red internacional en economía circular, también con una de las universidades de Quebec, de la red de universidades de Quebec. Y bueno, aquí participaron tanto instituciones mexicanas, quebequenses, francesas de otros países. Entonces, como ven, pues somos bastante activos en nuestras colaboraciones en la UNAM. Le comentaba a la doctora que, bueno, ya les diré un poco más adelante, pero desde casi hace 41 años tenemos relaciones por medio de nuestros grupos de trabajo y la UNAM siempre está presente en las convocatorias, ¿no? Entonces siempre es un gusto estar aquí, no en el escritorio revisando los formularios, sino ya en la vida real, pues presenciando los alcances de estas colaboraciones que siempre son muy impresionantes. Y bueno, si me permiten un poco de contexto, la Delegación General de Quebec en México existe desde 1980 como una oficina de representación, por lo que desde hace casi 45 años el gobierno de Quebec desarrolla y conduce relaciones propias con sus pares mexicanos, gobierno federal, gobiernos estatales, instituciones, por supuesto, en rubros que van desde el comercio y las inversiones hasta la atracción de talentos y estudiantes, pasando por la cultura, la cooperación para el desarrollo y, por supuesto, la investigación y los intercambios académicos. La relación entre México y Quebec es sólida y robusta. Como les decía, tenemos esta historia con el Grupo de Trabajo Quebec-México, que es una convocatoria que hacemos cada 2 años. La última la lanzamos hace algunos meses. Bueno, el grupo se llama 2023-2025, aunque realmente lo oficializamos en febrero de este año. Es un proyecto muy bonito que hacemos con la Secretaría de Relaciones Exteriores y la MEXID, que como saben es el brazo de la Secretaría de Relaciones Exteriores para la Cooperación Internacional para el Desarrollo. Y bueno, pues contarles que desde 1982, gracias a este mecanismo, hemos podido apoyar más de 330 proyectos en sectores como la cultura, la educación, por supuesto, la investigación, el medio ambiente, que precisamente pues el objetivo es plantar una pequeña semilla, ¿no? Para que socios de México y de Quebec, académicos, investigadores, artistas, creadores que estén trabajando en proyectos parecidos y que puedan unir sinergias, pues puedan presentar una propuesta interesante. Y bueno, en este caso, pues felicidades de nuevo, porque siempre es un proceso muy competitivo. En esta convocatoria recibimos más de 50 proyectos, solo seleccionamos 17 y pues su proyecto fue uno de los elegidos, así que muchas felicidades. Y bueno, pues cómo no iba a ser así si es un tema de gran relevancia y pues gracias al trabajo del profesor Crispino y sus colegas de la UQTR, esta importante institución quebequense se posiciona como un actor crucial en la coautoría de la Declaración de Sídney, que propone un abordaje disruptivo y novedoso a las ciencias forenses. Seguiremos entonces muy de cerca los avances de este proyecto binacional entre dos grandes instituciones que estamos seguros dará pie al intercambio de conocimientos y mejores prácticas a la investigación y, por qué no, a fomentar intercambios y movilidad entre docentes y estudiantes y, por supuesto, a nutrir y alimentar los contenidos y programas de estudios de ambas universidades. Enhorabuena y muchas felicidades. Chef Frank, la parole est à toi.
Merci beaucoup. No, perdón, un momento. Casi, casi. Solo quiero leer un párrafo introductorio de esta presentación porque terminaré diciendo que le tenemos mucha simpatía a esta declaración de la cual nos va a hablar hoy el doctor Frank Crispino. Junto con académicos y profesionales forenses de Estados Unidos, Reino Unido, Irlanda, Australia, Finlandia y Suiza, el profesor Crispino es coautor de la Declaración de Sídney, un documento que tiene por objetivo brindar una frase conceptual común a la ciencia forense, independientemente de organizaciones, técnicas y o protocolos, reconociendo la centralidad del indicio, es decir, el vestigio o residuo de una presencia o actividad. Además, de presentar la Declaración de Sídney compartiendo su experiencia y experticia, este intercambio podrá dar ocasión para que la delegación de la UQTR, que está liderada por el doctor Crispino, conozca la problemática de nuestro país una vez que podamos tener la posibilidad, cuando termine el de presentar, de interactuar con la comunidad académica de esta Escuela Nacional. Esta declaración de Sídney se pronunció en la pasada reunión de la Asociación Internacional de Científicos Forenses, que tuvo lugar en Australia. Nosotros la hemos leído y la recibimos con mucha simpatía para escuchar al experto que nos hablará sobre ella. Ahora sí, doctor Crispino.
Thanks so much, Lumia. Thanks so much, Doctora. Do you hear me? It's fine behind? Okay. Unfortunately, I will probably stay a sit, which is not usual for me. Usually, I like to move around, but because of Zoom interviews, Zoom sessions, and so on, I will stick there. So probably it will be fine after the meal I had today. Thanks for the introduction. Thanks for presenting myself. I should come a little bit back to my background with the first snapshots. But when I was asked to present the Sydney Declaration, there was many facets that I could approach. Either only read the Sydney Declaration, explain what was behind, which would be very boring for all of you. Read the Sydney Declaration and explain what should be done, which would be very pretentious. Also, I'm French, so I can be pretentious. Or track back in history why we needed the Sydney Declaration, and to let you understand that it is up to you to let it alive and to practice it. So I choose the third pathway. And for that, I should introduce a little bit myself. So as I said, I'm professor now in forensic science at the University of Quebec at Trois-Rivières. The forensic program is hosted, that's the way I define it, is hosted at the Department of Chemistry, Physics, and Biochemistry. Hosted means that I'm neither a chemist, neither a biochemist, neither a physician. So it doesn't help a lot, or a physicist would be better. So it doesn't help so much. Who am I? A forensic scientist. Well, it doesn't exist. Well, that's why I'm here. So I'm also the director of the postgraduate program in forensic science and chemistry for the reasons I just explained you. And I'm also the director of the forensic science research group at the UQTR, which is a regroupment of researchers. It's not really laboratories with devices, etc. It is the meeting of the researchers interested in forensic science, mainly in our department, of course. Some of them are here, for instance, Benoit and Denis. Then we activate, we try to analyze forensic science. My research itself, let's explain that. My research is about epistemology. What does it mean? And trace ontology. Well, lots of words to know today. Epistemology is how do we acquire knowledge? And one means knowledge. And I'm better interested of how we can distinguish knowledge from belief, which is very difficult, moreover in forensic science. Trace ontology. Ontology means the very nature. If we don't understand what we are working with, and we don't work with something we learned to work at university, which is Galilean experience, everything controlled, we work with a silly thing, degraded, contaminated. We don't even know the way why it came here and why we never sample anything, We select exactly at that place. So it has nothing to do with all the model we have about interpretation usually. So that's trace ontology. And then you come into interpretation. Interpretation means, I'm pretty sure you like it, probability, but not only probability. And what means, by the way, probability, is that something else? Is it the limit of a frequency, or is it a belief? And then forensic intelligence, due to my past, because within the past, as I was blonde and 30 kilo less, I was wearing this uniform, and with these various decorations that were various awards. So regarding research, I should also introduce a little bit UQTR research entities. I spoke of the Forensic Science Research Group, but we have other research entity at UQTR. We are the only one university in Canada, and I would say in the world for this latitude, to have a human taphonomical center or human taphonomical facility, which means that where bodies of donors, for which I immediately pay tribute and respect, give their corpses to let us study decomposition or other forensic science topics of interest. That's unique in Canada. But also at REST, we also developed a research on social and philosophy. That means what the relationship was with death. And it's better to make philosophy facing death, that means facing our donors, than making a philosophy in an Ethereum bubble. So that's what we do. Or the understanding of the relationship of the First Nations with death, for instance, and all kind of research like that about ethics, deontology, what can we do with bodies, how do we entertain the social acceptance of what we are doing, etc., etc. Okay. We have also other research entity, Traces. You say Traces everywhere. Yes, Traces everywhere. Traces is the lab of Emmanuel Milo. Emmanuel Milo is one of our researchers and professor. Is our geneticist, so our biology guy. I'm more versed about interpretation of biological traces, and he is at the head of this Traces laboratory, which is in charge of modern and ancient DNA, so degraded DNA and so on, right? And Maxime Bérubé is also another researcher who is in charge of digital traces, so everything about digital traces, be it in the air, on computers, our hyperconnectivity to everything today, pictures everywhere. So we are living now in the digital age. So Maxime deals with it, and his lab is called Lab 404. You know why 404? Lab 404? No one? When you got a mistake on Windows, you say it is error 44. So that's it, right? And we've got two shares. One share about digital forensic science with Maxime Bérubé I just introduced, and another research share on portable technologies for forensic investigation with my other colleague, Céline Multaler, who is also a PhD from Lausanne. So once the presentation was done, come back to what we are addressing. And for the students who are listening here, I'm sorry for you, but I was asked by your doctor to make an examination. No, she didn't ask me anything like that, but you will have a small questionnaire at the end because I want to have some kind of feedback with you, okay? So let's go. What is the forensic current framework? The forensic current framework is this one. That means you know all, I'm pretty sure, hopefully, else the UPTR delegation will have to leave immediately back to Quebec or Canada. The forensic science is based on two main principles: Locard's principle, Locard's exchange principles, correct? And Kirk principles. So Locard's principle is called also the exchange principle. Kirk is the individuality principle. And Locard's principle said every contact leaves a trace, correct? No, wrong. Locard never says that, never wrote that. Locard wrote something which was very much more clever, okay? He said that the truth is that no one can act with the intensity required by criminal action without leaving multiple traces of the passage, and then explain what these kind of traces were, okay? And if you read a little bit what Locard said, it is sociological. It has nothing to do with universal principle. I mean, the way the Americans translated it. Every contact leaves a trace. Universal principle applying everywhere. That's not what Locard said. His ground is sociological. What said Kirk? Kirk said every object of our universe is unique, correct? No way, he never said that. He said that a thing can be identical only with itself, never with any other object, since all objects in the universe are unique. That's the whole sentence. If you check it, it's a principle of philosophical nature. And you can trace it back to Leibniz, universe of entities, or even to Wittgenstein with his Tractatus Philosophicus. And I'm sorry, I will just read it because I don't know it by heart, even if it was my thesis. To say that two things are identical is meaningless. And to say of one thing that it is identical to itself is to say nothing at all. It's just philosophy. Nothing scientific. Well, what is science, by the way? We'll check it later on. Okay. But when you have this kind of look about the ground nature of our pricing, that means whatever those native principles define, our forensic current paradigm. And what is a paradigm? It is a cultural matrix common to a scientific community. That is the way. That is why I interviewed you. You know Kirk. You know Kind. You know Kirk. You know Locard. Sorry. Okay. So you're forensic scientists because that's our principles. That's our native principles. Correct. It belongs to the conception of our world we want to have. What forensic science is about. What forensic science relies on. I will say it's much more a way of thinking. It is a paradigm that means some kind of conception of the world around us to help us do our job. What is a paradigm? It is a complete tradition. It is a metaphysical speculation. It is a model. It is a tool accepted in a common law of a scientific community. So if we are the scientific community, we accept it, and it is a paradigm. We believe in it. It is a norm applied to quasi-metaphysics. It is an organizing principle that can govern perception itself. I'll come back on it on invention of the trace. It is a general epistemological point of view, a new way of seeing something that defines much of reality. We define reality through what we want to see, what we want to address, what we want to analyze, what we want to interpret. Correct? And then within this paradigm, within this forensics, pure science paradigm, we have miscarriage of justice. One of the big miscarriages of justice is Mayfield. Who knows Mayfield's case? No, not you. Right? Okay. What is the Mayfield case? Mayfield case is very interesting. Sorry. On March 11, 2004, in Madrid, at Osha station, a big explosion occurred. Terrorist one from Al Qaeda. At the time, I was at War College, and I was in charge of a group on religious terrorism. So it was a great opportunity to work better. 193 fatalities, about 2,000 injured, and rapidly a finger mark, not fingerprinting. So rapidly a finger mark is found on the plastic bag, on a PET bag, which is the bag which is supposed to have handled the explosives. So it looks like something like which is at the core of forensic science. It is a relevant trace. This trace is developed. It's a bad quality trace. Not so bad, by the way, but well, it's a bad quality trace. And immediately, because you're an international event, it's a big case, it's a terrorist event, it is sent to Interpol to be shared by the various police forces, right? Then on April 10th, 2004, the FBI finds 10 matches, 10 miniature matches, the small points we count once we are sure that there is no discrepancy elsewhere. That is the way we should do it, right? So they found 10 points and claims for a positive ID. And the ID is Brandon Mayfield. On April 13th, 3 days later, 2004, Spain denies it is Mayfield. Then on April 19th, Spain identifies the finger marks as being one related to Unan Daoud. Unan Daoud is a research terrorist from the Al Qaeda branch. We didn't find his body on the site itself. So either he really blew up, but no traces, or he had time to flee out, right? Okay. But nevertheless, despite that, at the end of April 2004, American experts come to Spain to explain to the Spaniards that they are wrong. We are Americans. We are sure. It's 100% identification. So we will show you it's 100% identification. Okay. On May 6th, that means in April, end of April, they are in Spain. On May 6th, they arrest Brandon Mayfield. He will be arraigned for 2 months. He will have a big compensation afterwards because there is something wrong with Brandon Mayfield. He's white. I'm pretty sure he will have been black. It won't have been the same case. Oh, by the way, he's also a defense lawyer. Shit. But he converted to Islam. Converted to Islam. At the time, he was serving as a reserve in Afghanistan, in the Middle East. He married to an Egyptian woman, and then he converted to Islam. That's his problem. Oh, another problem. He defended the Boston Four, which were Muslims involved in a route to Afghanistan. Yes, but in which case did he defend one of them? Oh, in a case of divorce. Nothing to do with the trafficking route to Afghanistan whatsoever. Wow, problem. Defense lawyer, white, and lots of yes, obviously. Oh, then it's individual mistakes. That is what we say for 100 years. Each time there is a mistake, it's an individual mistakes. Correct? then can you explain why 4 American experts, 2 of them being in charge of qualifying all American experts, made these mistakes themselves? Isn't it what we could call a systemic mistake? That means the system itself collapsed. Hard to admit it, even today in America. So what next? The dogma of identification, of fingerprint identification, was shackled. Okay, but was it the first time in history? Not at all. Isn't it a problem of crisis in the legal and decision context? Scientists themselves are aware that there can be faintness in forensic science itself. For instance, on the left, here, this guy, Orfila, who was called the emperor toxicologist. He was selected by Napoleon I, and he was one of his pathologists at the time. In 1840, here is what he said. In the Lafarge case, Lafarge is a beautiful lady on the left, and everyone said, with the standard of the time, that she was so beautiful that no one male couldn't fall in love with her. And probably it was the case of Orfila. Listen, I was asked to say whether Lafarge's body, that means her husband was dead, Lafarge's body contained arsenic, and not to say whether Madame Lafarge was guilty or innocent. Lafarge was so ashamed, was so shaken, that Mrs. Lafarge was found guilty because he was the great Lafarge, expert at the Court of Appeal of Paris, expert at the Court of Cassation, the French Supreme Court. They said, I never said she was guilty. You understood she was guilty, but it's not what I said. I don't want her to be guilty. And immediately, Lafarge resigned from all his positions as experts in France. Another example, the one down, Poincaré, with the left case, which is the Dreyfus case. I'll come back on Dreyfus case later on. At the turn of the 19th century, Poincaré was in charge with a bunch of mathematical experts to reanalyze Bertillon's expertise on the Dreyfus case. And Poincaré was very clever, not to say that the method was wrong because he was not experienced in his methods, but to say that the inferences, the way of thinking, were wrong. And here is once again what Poincaré said. In a world, because the authors, Bertillon and his colleagues, reasoned poorly on false documents. The problem of forensic science is not analytics. It's not quality management. The problem of forensic science is inference. What does it mean? And that is why we have experts to help persons, decision makers, trier of facts to decide. Indeed, wrongful convictions are rarely imputable to forensic evidence alone, even if they look like a lot of time. Okay, here is a few cases that I give to my students, but I got many others during their curriculum. Okay, and some of these cases, of course, are imputable to forensic evidence only. And when they look like they should have been detected by the gatekeepers, who are the lawyers. That's their job to find that there was a mistake in that way. For instance, when there is a compromised chain of custody, or a poorly trained examiner not applying standards. That's the role of the gatekeeper, even if the scientist at that time is a bad scientist. Okay, but first and foremost, the main and principal outcomes are stereotype biases. You saw it, for instance, with Mayfield, and you can guess that there were some also behind me. Okay, probative evidence overlooked at the scene of crime, where the scientists aren't. Police investigators, misuse or ignorance of forensic evidence. Prosecutors, suppression or mischaracterization of evidence. Judges, admitting testimonies that does not conform to rules of evidence. So the problem is, once again, systemic. Not only the problem of the scientist. And besides, all too often, the accused will not be afforded an adequate defense, especially given the technical complexity of forensic evidence. That means that this issue of miscarriage of justice that are due to forensic evidence were to be better and do not arise in a vacuum. They result from system issues that are discernible. come back to Mayfield. Mayfield led to the NAS report, National Academy of Science report. Very interesting. Few forensic scientists inside, lots of other scientists. And I like it. Each time there is a problem in forensic science, we turn to other scientists to explain what forensic scientists should do. It's like if, when there is a problem in medicine, you will turn to mathematicians or physicists and say, how should they practice better medicine? And we say it's completely stupid. That is what we do. Correct? So why did the NAS report occur? Because of the Brown from Mayfield case, you remember this white guy, defense lawyer, etc., etc. Okay, the systemic problem for inspectors, for experts, 2 of them qualifying all the experts in America. But Mayfield is only the emerging tip of the iceberg. There were many other cases before. For instance, there is a book in '91 called Galileo's Revenge, Junk Science in the Courtroom. No need to translate, no? We had also another case, which was a litigious case, which led up to the change of the Supreme Court of the USA hearings, jurisprudence, which is the Dobbert versus Merrildo, and what is called his trilogy, which try, unfortunately, to define what science is. I like in this Dobbert versus Merrildo hearing, I like the minority opinion of Judge Rehnquist. Judge Rehnquist, minority opinion, that is the one who was not heard, but nevertheless we've got a trace, said, we don't have to define science. We are jurists. We have no idea what science is, but they did it. And it didn't perform science better, for sure. In America or in Anglo-Saxon country, we've got the success of Innocence Project with the review of DNA cases, and some of them are highly relevant to question at least people who were condemned, including to the death sentence. We have also lots of critics from cognitive sciences. One of the most prolific one is Droit, Etienne Droit, who addressed practically all kind of forensic sciences, to say that all forensic scientists, you are all biased. But by the way, all of our human activity are biased. So what are the findings, nevertheless, of the NAS report? There is a fragmentation of the scientific community. So the findings that I write here, in the first pages, the NAS report is about 485 pages, okay? And the first 50, 60 pages is the findings, and then you've got the solutions which are proposed, okay? So the findings are, there is a fragmentation of the scientific community. There is no robust practices excepting DNA, and I cancel accepting DNA because 7 years later, what is called the PCAS report said, oh, which was a survey, a review of what happened with the NAS report. What did we do since the NAS report? Okay, and the PCAS report said, well, we didn't change anything up to now. We didn't make progress, but we have a problem. We found also that we have a problem with DNA. Okay, there is no peer review to support scientific foundations of many forensic methods, and there is no determination of a match. But if you read the very first pages of the NAS report, there are very interesting contextual informations in it. What are contextual informations? Conservatism and opposition to change of the criminal justice system. There is no will of courtroom to submit scientific evidence to valid researches, which is, by the way, out of touch of many forensic disciplines. Lawyers are unable, it's written in NAS report, lawyers are unable to understand scientific validity. Trials are time constrained, and there are discrepancies between courtrooms to admit scientific evidence. When you see these outcomes, these circumstantial data, you will await certainly that there is for sure an urgent need to educate who? Scientists. We know that the way that science is produced at trial, the environment is not convenient with it, but it's up to the scientific community to adapt to it. I said, I told you about the PCAS report, that the report on the right side. In Canada in 2013, so in between, we had also a report, which is called the Arthouse report, which say practically the same thing that the NAS report, the Canadian way. You know, we are less excessive than our American South neighbors. That means fragmentation of the scientific community, knowledge practices, etc., etc. And all the solutions you find in the trilogies, that means the NAS, the Arthouse, and the PCAS, is we should manage biases. And to manage biases, we should split and let make it dependent all labs from prosecution and police services. There is 402 labs in the United States. None of them became independent up to now, since 2009. But that is what you have to do to make good forensic science. And we have to certify, accredit, quality management, all practices, okay, to assure reliability of forensic evidence. Oh, by the way, that means that you have to develop standardization of methods, of procedures, even of report. You have to certify all disciplines, correct? By the way, what was the first problem of forensic science? Fragmentation of the scientific community? Does it help to defragment the scientific community? So questions arise, of course, and indeed, forensic scientists themselves have concerns about what was found in the NAS report, which is still a shock today. And here are some of the papers that were published in the scientific community who say, well, who is at trial, forensic science or the system itself? Forensic science, is it an enabler or disabler of criminal investigation? How are we facing failed forensics? And then you've got lawyers explaining how, once again, explaining how failed forensic could recover. Some forensic scientists questioning, well, are we certain of our own future? The crisis for the future of forensic science, lesson from the UK, and the importance of epistemology for funding research and development. Is forensic science in danger of extinction? But I'd like to come back 60 years backwards. Kirk, remember Kirk, the principle of individuality, which is not every object of your university unique, with all the progress that has been made in this field, and on white front, 63, by the way. Careful examination shows that for the most part, progress has been technical rather than fundamental, practical rather than theoretical, transient rather than permanent. Do we understand what we practice? So remember, the solution of the NAS was bias reduction and normalization. I told you 1991, there was a book called Galileo's Revenge, Junk Science in the American System, Junk Science in the Courtroom, sorry. Okay, then can you explain me, as there was a trilogy and the NAS report in between, our defense lawyer, once again, Chris Fabricant, could write something like 31 years later, Junk Science and the American Criminal Justice System. Why are they state reports? Why are they commissions? Why are they recommendations? And 32 years later, nothing changed. Isn't the problem more confused? For instance, if you check in the same report what is proposed, we should focus on courtroom questions. But if you check all the various sociological research, criminological research, and forensic research, which are done about how many traces are arriving at the courtroom, only a very petty minority. Nothing arriving at the courtroom. I will show you another graph later. Okay. There is too much fragmentation, too many silo effects, remember? But at the same time, scientists should be independent of police structures. And they shouldn't discuss between each other, else they will be biased. Scientists should not assess activity level. But as scientists, if we are forensic scientists, our main goal is to understand how traces are generated. So we are the best position to understand the activity level of traces, if it is relevant, consistent, and even the weight of evidence. Forensic science should be assessed through econometric criteria, for instance, delay and quality procedures. And others profess that forensic science should be assessed through its impact on the security and criminal justice system. By the way, how can we assess the impact of forensic science on it? Information sharing is a priority. You could even find it in the 9/11 report. in the aftermath of the 9/11 Twin Tower disaster. Okay, and but at the same time, remember, scientists should not be biased. They should not discuss between each other. So information sharing should be strictly controlled. How could you merge? How could you coordinate these two tensions? Finally, do we need a model of integrated lab nearby the police forces, or do we need some kind of medical lab where police officers will come with their USB or with their samples that they did themselves, put it in a machine, push a button, get back the results, and do it themselves? So what's wrong? Do people understand really what science is about? Oh, by the way, remember that quality management is a prerequisite. It is now mandatory. Without quality management, forensic science is junk science. So may I introduce you junk scientists? Rice, Lockhart, Vollmer, and Kirk. They never formalized quality management. They were not accredited. So they are junk scientists, by the way. What does it mean? Correct? So science, probably first question, what science is about? Science is a systematic study of the structure and behavior of the physical world, and natural world, through observation, experimentation, and the testing of theories against the evidence obtained. I took here the Oxford Dictionary. But science itself is split into scientific disciplines, also called sciences or fields of science, that are subdivisions of science and branches of knowledge that use a rigorous and systematic methods to study a particular area of knowledge. Then our particular area of knowledge is the trace. And here you have two snapshots. On the left, you have a fingerprint. On the right, a fingerprint. They are the same? No way. On the left, you have something very blued, bad quality. That's a trace. On the right, you have something which should be the perfect reproduction, where the individuality should reside if fingerprint is unique. And if you're not happy with the right picture, then you have the person at your disposal. You do it again until the time that you will have the perfect reproduction of what you try to express. That's the print. If you mix both of them, you don't understand your job. Oh, by the way, that's Brandon Mayfield's print. And that's also Unan Dawood trace, the ones that was affected to Brandon Mayfield. So if we don't understand what we are working on, we're working on trace and not on prints, how can people outside understand what we're doing? Here, I'm happy to cite Deutsch, who is the father of quantum computer. Solving a problem is finding an explanation without conflict with the state of knowledge. That's all what we can do. But what awaits us tomorrow? And why do I go to the Sídney Declaration in a few moments? When forensic science emerged from somewhere, criminalistic with 2K, with Gross, criminalistic then with Lockhart and with Rice in Europe, criminalistics with CS at the end, like forensics, something like is in italic here, because something which is forbidden in our program. So I mean, forensics is not omics, it's not techniques, it's a science. Correct? But where do we go nevertheless with this forensics approach? In the early 20th century, you could make all your career being expert in one field, and it won't change anything. You could be expert in fingerprint for 50 years, only by experience. When DNA appeared in the 80s, well, we knew at the time that progress will evolve rapidly, that techniques will evolve rapidly, that in one student generation it will change. Then appeared moreover, and we entered into the digital area, 2002. And this digital area exponentially grows today with all our hyper connectivity, GSM, clouds, etc., etc. And we even know today that as professors, at the time that students enter into a curriculum, we don't even know at the time they will leave the curriculum 3 years later or 5 years later, is they will be fit for purpose. And we know that we are facing an explosion of data only because everything, all of our world is digitalized. Even our analogical data are digitalized today. So we are facing a problem of big data complexity. And sometimes we trust a little bit that artificial intelligence will help us to do it. But do we understand what it means? Tomorrow you will have a presentation by Denis about artificial intelligence, the low and highs of it, at least what we can foresee and take care of. Okay. And what is tomorrow? Tomorrow is DNA photo fit, is biometric recognition, is lab on chip, is drone, is big data. Oh, by the way, it's not tomorrow, it's today. Who managed technological limits? Who asks the relevant questions? Who assesses outcomes? And the who is in yellow because the who is you. If you wait for the lawyers to do it, good luck. Who assists? Detectives, police managers, decision makers. And you know the answer now once again. You don't believe me? I invite you to go on the internet tonight and to download, it's free, a series which is called Frontline, dates back from 2012, four spots, 1 hour each, okay, where forensic science, following the Mayfield's case and the NAS report, was questioned, okay? And here is what Judge Harris T. Watts, who was both member of the NAS committee report, who is also a judge of the Court of Appeal of the Ninth Circuit in Washington, D.C., said, in the adversarial system, once you get to court, your mission is to win. So you're not doing anything that will help the other party. In such a system, you're not looking for scientific truth. This work must have been done by the scientist. Same Judge Edwards, not me. It is an utopia to suggest that the scientific difficulties we face are going to be corrected by the court. Judges don't have the expertise for that. We don't even know how to ask the right question. It is not a lack of will. It's that most of us are misinformed. Oh, by the way, another scholar, who is, by the way, district attorney also in Texas, Lorraine points to a raft of yet unaddressed issue concerning the meaning of scientific integrity and reliability in the context of investigative decisions. That means before the NAS report, no more at the courtroom, before, what happens before, during the investigation process, and that are by and large committed to the discretion of decidedly unscientific actors. How many scientists are on a crime scene? So who is doing the triage? Who is deciding finally what is relevant, not relevant? What is rationally? What is the rationality behind? And you could say that, well, yes, but that's typically because of this adversarial system, Anglo-Saxon system, why not? Here is the Dean of the Faculty of Law of Sherbrooke in 1998. Here is what he wrote in a book about evidence, generally speaking. As for current students at Sherbrooke University in Quebec and Canada, is a well-known, it's a small university, Benoit, I think you went through. It's a small university, but with some kind of very pinpoint expertise, for instance, in law. They are very well known in whole Canada for the success they have about law. And many of the legal academics graduated from this university, many of them become judges, be it at provincial or federal level. So in 1998, he was the Dean of the Faculty of Law. Mr. Rocher was saying, as for current students, I have often found that most of those who are enrolled in law have avoided science education in high school and college. I told you that Sherbrooke School is a very well-known school for judges. 1998, 2024, 26 years, they're probably the judges in charge today. But forensics efficiency, now do you understand that forensics is a bad term? Here, I cite many studies behind. They come from the United States, from Sweden, from France, from Italy, from England. We all find the same thing. When you address, if you try to understand a little bit what we do with forensic evidence, better to address mass crimes, for instance, burglaries, correct? And then or car theft, for instance. And then to understand how many traces do we collect. And one of the best traces, we want to collect nice DNA. Some courtroom, for instance, don't prosecute if there is no DNA. And we know that so-called are searching for DNA immediately. So just try to understand on a ratio of 1,000 burglaries, how many times do we send so-called to? Let's say 85%. That's why you see 1,000 going down to 850, and now you understand the right scale. Okay, and then the various studies here are quite consistent, finding the same thing. 850 scenes are investigated, but 1,000. The 150 is because time elapsing, we don't have time, or the victims themselves are not complaining anymore, etc., etc. Okay. Then how many times do we find DNA for identification? Collapse. Then we know that we are lucky with DNA. So DNA is not only for identification, but also for linking cases. Sometimes we make links between traces. So it gives you a multiplicative ratio which allow you of 1.8, which allow you from 12.5 to go to 22.4 of efficiency, let's say, which we can continue to work with it. Okay. And how many of them are prosecuted? Half of them. Fourth system of crime, I admit it. Probably it would be higher, for instance, for murder. Correct? But then depends what is the criteria. If your criteria is highly biased and said, how many of them allow the prosecution to have a positive case, that means to condemn someone, is 0.3% of all the cases. So we have no financial efficiency. Don't do forensic science to make money. We'll be losers all the time, right? But what is interesting, it's this exponential decrease. I'll come back on this picture. Think a little bit also, what is organized crime? And here I jump into criminological studies. Organized crime is defined by flexibility, dexterous, fast, innovative, collaborative, networked, global. And what are we as forensic scientists? Because we have to respect the ISO norms. I don't say these bad norms, by the way. I'm not against the quality management, but the way we manage forensic science, are we so flexible, dexterous, fast, innovative? We are better, highly reactive, and very backwards reactive. Okay? So you remember this graph with the exponential decrease? Just look where our publications as scientists are. They are on the upper right, correct? If you check in Forensic Science International, Science and Justice, Forensic Science International Synergy, even Wires, etc., the majority of our scientific publications in forensic science is to have a better sensitivity, to increase the success for the courtroom. You remember 0.3%, but that's where these 0.3% which would be better, not to increase 0.3%, but that's on the 0.3%, more cases will be positive for the prosecution, reliable for them, correct? Here, we evaluate evidence for individuality of the prosecution and the sentences. We are at the court decision domain, correct? But what do we do for all the traces we are not left? Did we understand the work of the police themselves? Do we understand that police force is not only for arresting and putting someone to the court, it's also to prevent crimes, to understand criminality structures, to decipher and to prevent, yes, to prevent crime by stopping the activity of criminals. And sometimes we don't arrest them. And traces are available for that, not only for the courtrooms. If you check a little bit more over the current way of making investigation, we have a detective who highly focus on the behavior of the persons he knows around, of his criminals. Then he studies his behavior facing the situation itself. And the trace generally is corroborative. So that means we have the proof finally, and it ends the case. But we have to change our investigative paradigm. Our investigative paradigm is that traces are everywhere. Then we have to understand why these traces are coming into this kind of situation. And behavior is secondly. And if you check on international level with the professional association, scientists themselves, sometimes who are even not police officers, know much more better about crimes than police officers themselves, because they face traces everywhere and they understand what they are facing. So typically what happens today with digital traces. So what is our scientific challenge? Our scientific challenge is, instead of being a predictive science, like general research over general law, etc., through Galileans have been well-controlled experiments, to interpret sample, we are reproductive toward a singular uncontrolled event from generally an uncontrolled, degraded, often mixed specimen that we call a trace. And by the way, we are all based. That means all the time we're trying to find solutions, we try to find explanation to give a logical meaning of what we found. We have solutions for that. Solution is, once again, quality management. Be sure step by step about what we can pretend to do, or at least at an ethical level. And of course, we have the probabilistic formalism, which is the Bayesian canvas for interpretation of evidence. That means that the forensic scientist is not only a surrogate, but also an auxiliary of the trier of fact. And we have to distinguish the expert on one side. The expert gives some belief, that means of weight of evidence, but decision of fact, act. That means he condemned, he frees someone, probably falsely. Decision of fact could be a military commander to bomb a village in Iraq or in Gaza or whatsoever, depending on his system of value. So there's many other things that only probabilistic behind, which are out of touch of the expert himself. What is proof, by the way? Proof is an artifice established by recognized methods, which allows a proposition to be a subject of a belief. And here, for the oldest of you, remember 2003, that's the proof that was presented to the Security Council of the UN to invade Iraq. It was fake proof. But I'm pretty sure that this gentleman, Colin Powell, was really believing it was real proof of mass destruction weapons. How do we create proof? We create proof through the theory of logic, which plays with deduction, which plays with induction. But when you come back to a singular event, to initial conditions and causes we want to infer, that means we want to conclude with a certainty by abduction or retroduction. Why do I say that? Because all our inferences, all our conclusions as scientists are uncertain. Are uncertain at source level or activity level, and they have only sense, they're only sensical when they are contextualized. How do a trace become a proof? By becoming a cue, then a clue. And this area is blue because that's typically where the expert should be, where the scientist should be, how we add value to a trace, how we should interpret a trace. But because proof, as I show you, belongs to the belief of the decision maker, proof doesn't belong to the expert himself. And in English, how do we call that? Cue, clue, proof? No, everything is evidence. What does evidence mean? I have no idea. But we are safe. We have quality management, and we have a terrific formula, which is the old form of the Bayesian theorem. You all know. No, this is not a problem here, right? That allows us by deduction to quantify evidence. So we are in safe haven. We are even in safe haven that there are some prescriptive approach to say that's the only way to think of it. And I will say that this prescriptive approach is a logical one, and the only logical one available. I completely agree with it. I'm a Bayesian. I'm a Bayesian converted. There is no other solution than Bayes for interpreting evidence. But I'm not a Bayesian radical, because the problem is that even if all mathematics show that the rational increase of belief should be Bayesian, we don't think that way because we are human. We are not artificial intelligence. So one of the problem is the descriptive approach, which is in conflict with the prescriptive one, okay, and which is expressed, for instance, from Lindley himself. And Lindley is a pure Bayesian. The main danger is that Bayesian methods will be used automatically. You must think about the real quantity involved, temperature or blood pressure, and not about symbols that represent them. This distinction between the thinking you and the unthinking, calculating personal computer is essential. So we are not devices, we are human. But there is tension that here, once again, Lindley, speaking of Kahneman, even if he doesn't cite him, rather than award a Nobel Prize to someone who correctly shows how bad we are at decision-making, we should support research into coherent decision-making, What does it mean? When we use terms like likely and probable, and we don't even understand the difference between likely and probable, and in English is completely synonymous. So what does it mean? What do we transfer, we as scientists, to decision makers who are not scientists? By the way, do we as scientists understand what we do? So my search, my personal research, which come to the, by the way, to the Sídney Declaration, was, is there a pathway to reconcile security, justice, and science? To reconcile the prescriptive approach with the descriptive approach? To understand inferences? Or to practice some things that we speak a lot, never practice really, transparency? What do we work on? We work on traces, gorillas. Everything is traces. Even if you objectivize it, even if you have a super device, very expensive or not expensive, you push a button and you have a spectrum, but it's a spectrum of a trace. And itself, it is a trace itself. Correct? So there's lots of interpretation behind not only the objective, let's say, interpretation of the device itself, the objective, what I call the objectivation. But at the time, and you recognize here some electrophotogram, for instance, in the bottom, some physical trace with a earmark on the right, digital traces, of course, a chromatogram of arson products. You make selections as a scientist. I will take this pic and see, and why don't you take the other pics? Oh, I know it's not relevant. How do you know it's not relevant? Could we deceive this way of thinking? Correct? That means our job, and that's the Sídney Declaration, is to put the church, that means the trace, back into the center of the village. The trace is at the center of the village, and all the other technologies, sciences, etc., are only around helping us to work on it. So can we jump from forensics to forensic science? That means there's all the sciences which are support sciences, which are forensics. Coming to forensic science or forensic sciences, why not through some constraint like priority management? And that means that the forensic science is the science of the trace. And then you come to the rationale, the reason of the Sídney Declaration. The Sídney Declaration is the response to this fundamental poverty through the absence of theory and research for a holistic approach in forensic science. That means the reasoning process, the multidisciplinary beyond the sciences, the interpretation at the activity level, etc. And once again, let me remind Kirk, 63, Ontology of Criminalistics. Where is criminalistics, forensic science, or whatever it may be called, going? In 63, Kirk was writing that. That is the core of our science. So here is the definition of the forensic science by the Sídney Declaration. The Sídney Declaration was, so I won't come to the history itself, dating back something like 15 years before, but it is a bunch, a gang or mafia, whatever you could say, of forensic scientists, some of them with a high practitioner profile. All of them, by the way, who jumped or failed finally in the academics field. And originally, they began with a small group of only 2-3 persons who were practicing, let's say, psychotherapy to say, well, no one understands the problem of the trace. And when they began to speak for 15 years to all together, lots of other colleagues joined in to say, you're right, we have to express what our science is instead of letting other scientists to express what we should do. So the first was to define forensic science. It is a case-based or multi-case-based research-oriented endeavor, using the principle of science to study and understand traces. And the definition of traces is the remnants of past activities such as individual presence and actions through their detection, recognition, examination, and interpretation to understand anomalous events of public interest. For instance, crimes, but not only, litigations, security incidents, collusions, etc., etc. Then the Sídney Declaration. So what is this? Why is the Sídney Declaration? You understood it. It was first and foremost, and it was expressed first on the 18th of May 2021 during the COVID period, because originally it should have been shared and proposed to the community at the IAFS 2020, sorry, but we were entering into the COVID, so it was postponed to 2023. Okay, And so, but we decided with this, because I belong to it, of course, with this gang of, with this group of scientists, we decided that we couldn't wait three years more. So there was a Zoom meeting where we invited the community on the 18th of May, 2021. We had 1,200 delegates from all over the world, and we discussed at that time. And you can still upload the 2 hours long conference on internet. It's still available. Okay, and then in last November, the Sydney Declaration, the official one, was proposed to the community during the IFS 2023 in Sydney. Okay, so it is a frame of thought. It is a academic, epistemological academic positioning, which propose, which define what should be transparency with interlocutors, with stakeholders. It is also the recognition of a profession, and to understand that forensic science, singular, is a science in its own right. These principles, Sydney Declaration principles, are 7. I won't detail it. After you can read it both in Forensic Science International 2022, but also on the Sydney Declaration website. And there is no problem at all. We can diffuse it. I will explain the extension today. First principle, activity and presence produce traces that are fundamental vectors of information first and foremost. They are first and foremost informations. After becoming evidence, becoming proof, it depends what we want to do with it. Scene investigation is a scientific and diagnostic endeavor requiring scientific expertise. Where are the scientists on crime scene? Forensic science is case-based and reliant on scientific knowledge, investigative methodology, and logical reasoning. I show you a little bit the key of logic of Peirce with deduction, abduction, induction. But what does it mean? What is the hypothetical deductive methods? How do we use it? Where are the traps? What should we do against it? Forensic science is an assessment of findings in context due to time asymmetry. And you see with the small pictures that I took from Olivier Ribot, that on the upper side, you've got the real world that we try to decipher. We will never reach truth. We will propose a truth or something else, okay? And on the bottom, that's the modelization we have to try to transfer it to the model we want to present, we will defend, for instance, in courtroom or elsewhere. So forensic science is an assessment of findings in context due to time asymmetry. Fifth principle, forensic science deals with the continuum of uncertainty. And we don't like uncertainty as human. We like certainty, but not uncertainties. Sixth principle, forensic science has multidimensional purposes and contributions, and not only uniquely for courtroom and judges, but also for public health, for food security, for industry security, fighting against contraband, fighting against fake produce, etc., etc. We need at that time forensic scientists. And finally, seventh principle, forensic science finding a crime meaning in context, what I call semiosis. That means the added value of signification up to the time that it satisfies myself, either to produce it in courtroom, to produce it to law enforcement organization, for academic knowledge, fundamental ones, for whatever. At the time you want to stop this semiosis, then you reach one of the goals of forensic science. What is its current international implementation? The Sydney Declaration was already translated in Icelandic, in Iceland, Denmark, Norway, Sweden, and Finland. This is what we call Baltic Initiative. There is also a translation in Spanish, Chinese, Arabic, and Swahili. And there is just a recent paper in Africa that supported the Sydney Declaration. And it is currently the pillar of the Executive Forensic MBA. It's an MBA, it's not a mistake of mine. It's not a BSc or something like science. It is administration. That means, well, who are the leaders in laboratories? Are they scientists? No, not necessary. Who are the ones who use forensic science? That means the scientists. Well, they're detectives. Do they know what science is? Do they know how to manage scientists? No way. Well, could be of interest, no? So that's why there is MBA. Okay, and back to education. Finally, who do we educate? And in the we, I will propose to do them. Here, nevertheless, I took the Quebec model. Okay, if you check, for instance, another semiotic, that means another science of the trace or of the sign, is medicine. The sign in medicine is symptoms. If you have symptoms, if you have head pain, if you bones pain, etc., that's the first symptoms. That's a sign. And then you go to a doctor. Probably before the doctor, because you felt in the street, you have paramedics coming to you. And going to the doctors, you're put under control, and then we try to decipher what you have. Correct? What do we have in forensic science? Our paramedics are SOCOs. Our specialists are experts in laboratory. Do you imagine the health public system in Mexico or even in America or in Quebec or in France or whatever, where paramedics won't talk to GPs, general practitioners, won't talk to specialists, and specialists won't talk to paramedics, explaining, don't talk to them, you will be biased. And we say it's completely stupid. I mean, they have to talk to each other. By the way, every 10 years, at least in Quebec, at least in France, and in states with Obamacare, Trump care, etc., we make a law to ask them to talk to each other, to decrease the cost and to be better efficient, right? But in forensic science, don't speak to each other. Your bias is bad science. And by the way, with the general practitioner, the GP, the forensician, or the tracheologist, there is none. Why do we need? Well, on one side, every 10 years we've got a law. That means it doesn't work. Yes, you don't do a work. On the other side, we don't change anything. It works very well. So will UNAM join the new paradigm? That will be the conclusion, correct? I will just by opportunity, I was associated 2 days ago by Claude Roux, who was in Dubai, for reframing forensic science with fundamental principles in a world summit of chief police officers. Okay, he was invited there. Here it is. And then I will transform it a little bit. I told to the students here in the room that we will have a small CRISPR examination. So listen to me, correct? What are the managerial expectations from forensics? You know, forensics is a bad name, but okay. So forensics, is that techniques, technology, or science? Is that technicians or scientists? Are they subordinates or collaborators? And where, that's my question, where do you think you will find the solution to reframe this relationship? Where? Who knows? It was just, who knows? In the Sídney Declaration, just read it, correct? Second question, very difficult, okay? We had a survey, we made a research in Quebec for the understanding of high-ranking officers, both on the financial aspect, but also operational aspects, but what the understanding about forensic science and the various opportunity forensic science was offering them. What we found, and we made the same research in Switzerland, with some differences due to another way of seeing forensic science and educating police officers there. But police managers tend to focus mainly, if not exclusively, on the ability of forensic science to serve justice. The police manager's conception of forensic science may hinder its potential to be proactively implemented in policing model. And this situation should be addressed as a more holistic application of forensic science could offer relevant insights to policing, including threat identification and resource allocations. Where do you think that we could, which canvas do you think we could use to, as I said here, to propose relevant insight to policing, including threat identification and resource allocations? Where? Where? Sídney Declaration, you get it, right? That's principle 6, multi-purpose is 1. Okay, and because you answer correctly, then you're free not to go for eating or whatsoever. But I will be happy to answer your questions, no problem. Oh yeah, I have some news on Machine.
Well, thank you so much, and congratulations, Dr. Frank Crispino, for your speech and for the Sídney Declaration. I think it's a very important effort from all that equipment. And I think right now is moment to talk with the audience. Maybe someone here who are here present. We have our professors or our students. I want to say hello to Dr. Severina, who I know is connected by Zoom. She's in charge of the forensic science services in Mexico City. And I'm really glad she's listening this to us. And I know the head of the forensic science program in the university in Guadalajara is also connected. Hello, and thank you for that. Does anyone wants to make a comment or a question, or maybe that you want to know more about the Sídney Declaration? You know, we were in Denver a few weeks ago, and they spoke about the Sídney Declaration for 5 hours. So there's a lot of things to say about the Sídney Declaration. Yes. Here we have a question or a comment. Mm-hmm.
Bueno, pues agradezco muchísimo la oportunidad de participar el día de hoy. Doctor, bueno, me pareció sumamente interesante la reflexión que usted hizo a propósito de pues todo el background epistemológico que debe de prevalecer en nuestro pensamiento de cómo vamos construyendo las ciencias forenses. Es muy cierto lo que usted comentaba a propósito de ponernos a reflexionar de estas características que comparten los grupos de delincuencia organizada versus nuestros esfuerzos desde las ciencias forenses. En el trabajo que a mí me tocó realizar en las cocinas de manera muy breve, son campos de exterminio del crimen organizado, yo me di cuenta que estas personas hacían experimentación y buscaban los métodos más eficaces para poder, pues poder eliminar la identidad o dificultar en su caso, ¿no? Luego tenemos otros casos como el famoso pozolero, que es hidrólisis alcalina, en donde nos tocaba ir a recuperar fragmentos de centímetros de hueso que yo como antropóloga no podía dar respuesta, como médico mucho menos. Entonces, eso motiva, a mí en lo personal me motiva a pensar cuál es el aporte que debería de estar yo dando, si como perito que trabaja y que es ágrafo, o a lo mejor como investigadora que pueda aportar a esta parte, ¿no? Y en ese sentido siento que es el punto en el cual nuestro país tendría que pensar en que tenemos una oportunidad única, tenemos un laboratorio único, y que desafortunadamente si nosotros no podemos cambiar en materia de seguridad, pues al menos yo confío que desde la parte de la experimentación en las ciencias podríamos aportar en esa parte, ¿no? Pero muchísimas gracias, doctor. Nos hizo bueno, en lo personal me hizo reflexionar muchísimo en mi papel, pues como investigadora en este sentido, ¿no? Muchísimas gracias, doctor.
Thanks so much, and thanks for the question. Thanks so much. I will just complete a little bit. Thanks so much what you said. Even if there were no question, nevertheless, it opens one door about the position and the role of academics. Academics, of course, could be very excited to do good casework and to transfer itself as expertise laboratory, and why not if they have the resources for it. And more real cases help to better frame the problem we're facing. So I don't say that academics shouldn't go to cases, but they should first and foremost understand the role of academics, and that is what happens, at least with the discussions we had with UNAM for quite some months, etc. The role of academics is to see what will happen in 10 years, 20 years, 50 years. And what will happen is a little bit the snapshot forensics infinite to tomorrow, is that we know that the system will collapse. The system will collapse because the way as resource manager we think is a linear way. We know only to add resources. We don't know how to multiply resources. But the traces we are facing today are exponentially growing. So if we continue to think the old way, we will never tackle and will be completely submerged by traces for which we won't be even able to understand the relevancy and where to work on. So you can dream a little bit, saying, oh yes, but artificial intelligence, Elon Musk, or the fridge which will cool the planet and the nuke who will stop the hurricanes will help us. But technology won't help us. Technologies are only tools of humans. So we are first and foremost to understand the society in which we are evolving, and that's the role of university. How the technologies which are offered to us should help us with one goal which is clearly identified, and I'm not sure currently, I could take many examples, for instance, phenotyping, etc., that we really understand that it's not only by adding technologies that we will solve problems.
Tengo una pregunta del Zoom de Rómulo López. Él pregunta si considera usted que sería importante involucrar a las escuelas judiciales en cursos forenses.
Just repeat, I missed one. I missed part.
They are asking if you consider that it's important to have scientific courses for the
So if I understand the question is that should the police academy join the courses, the forensic courses, or are the forensic courses? What?
The judicial academy, because they have an academy, they have a school. If it is necessary that they take classes on forensic science.
There's no discussions about it, but yes, but worse or better than you think. I spoke, for instance, of the MBA in France, which is developed currently, and the MBA is dedicated not for the SOCOs, not for the technicians. It is dedicated for their authority, for their chiefs, for the judicial chiefs. Because the one who decides if you allocate resource, if you go in one direction, etc., are not the technicians. It is the police officers, the detectives, more than the detectives. That is why we did a research on the forensic police, or the police managers, not the forensic police, not the forensic managers, the police managers. And something which is quite funny, each time that we propose such a course to police managers, etc., they don't come. They don't need, because we are managers. That's the problem, guy. I mean, if you don't understand the limits of science, if you don't understand the limit of your own personal, and there is many studies, sociological studies, which exist. For instance, I could cite Nobel Prize Herbert Simon, who speaks of niche of specialization. He speaks of SWAT team, but also, but you can translate it to SOCO teams, etc. SOCOs in many police forces have no authority. Yes, officially they have one, but when you turn to the authority and you ask, what does your SOCO do? Oh, they do it well. They do it well. What? Come on, explain what you do. And you are in a militarized or hierarchical system where the chef doesn't understand, and it is human. It's not critics for the SOCOs. I like the SOCOs, okay? But when you are in a niche, in specialization niche, and you see that your authority, the one who every year give you the mark, which will give you a new wage, why not a new rank, etc., because you are, okay, you won't tell your authorities that you're nuts. You won't tell your authorities that, well, I don't know how we do it, because you prefer to appear as the one who will solve the system, who will solve the case. So the first persons, on my point of view, and with my colleagues, that now should be targeted. Of course, we should increase the education of senior crime officers, and it should be done with the involvement of academics, etc. There's no discussions about that. But the one of the important state today, so I think I answer at least partly at the question, is the judicial officers themselves. Not to become forensic scientists, but to know what forensic science can offer them.
But I am understanding that you are talking about the police institution, and what about the judges?
Same thing.
Mm.
Same thing. Prosecutors, judges. That means the people who decide, and that's exactly what Lauren was saying. Okay, the people who decide at the very beginning of investigations are not scientists. That means that all the decision, and you cannot go backwards. That's the principle 3, asymmetry of time. You cannot go backwards. That means everything you will build afterwards is built on the first decision we were taken, where science was not associated. So at least there should be, for instance, in Belgium, they put in place a forensic advisor at the Ministry of Justice. Okay. In France, we developed, at least in the French Gendarmerie, I say we because I participated at that time, but we educated what we call coordinator criminalistique, so forensic scientist supervisor, who are the advisor of prosecutors and judges, but also of their own hierarchy. Generally, unfortunately, it was only understood for serial cases. So they go to serial cases, but originally it should have been done on organized criminality, on low-level cases, because, of course, moreover, you got lots of problems in Mexico, for instance, but what do we do with the criminality, which is just low signal level? You are a burglar, you know that if you change every 2 days of the regions, the police don't speak to each other, even if they find traces, if they search for traces, but if they find traces, they will use it only on a vertical aspect, that means for the who question, but they won't share it with the, so you will stay undetected for quite a long time. And that's cost for the society. So, and all the persons who manage these systems, they are not forensic scientists. They are the judicial, they are the prosecutors, they are the police officers in charge of the judicial services, etc., etc. So they should be aware, at least informed, educated, not to become forensic scientists, but to know how to use it.
Yes, I'm agree with you. I think that kind of problem, we have the same problem here in Mexico, and it's nothing new. It's not useful. It's not accustomed to that the scientists who are working for justice talk to each other and make a table of discussion. And it's really strange that can happen. That could happen anytime. So I think that's something that we have to do. No, also. Not the police or the general attorney's office or the prosecutor talking to each other. Even that happens. So I think that this is a problem. We have to recognize this problem in our operation in Mexico, and we have to do something right now. I think you have the microphone. Please go ahead. The teacher, our professor, almost is a person who teach. This morning we were talking about that do you remember we were talking about the class that we called the analysis of the context or something? He is a professor.
Buenas tardes. Mi nombre es José Manuel Olmo Rodríguez. Tengo el gusto y la dicha de ser docente de esta licenciatura. He trabajado desde la primera generación. Soy agente de la Policía de Investigación en activo. Tengo voy a cumplir 28 años ya como policía. Me ha tocado vivir diversos momentos de la historia de la Policía de México. Yo me formé de una forma empírica en aquellos años, a finales de los 90, después del conflicto zapatista en México. Me tocó un momento de turbulencia en nuestro país y de ahí la necesidad de documentarme, de formarme profesionalmente para la investigación del delito. Y bueno, he compartido ya con todas las generaciones de esta licenciatura. Y algo que tenemos en México que mencionaba la doctora es que una realidad es que en México trabajamos de forma descoordinada. En esa trilogía investigadora en que tenemos que trabajar todos, Ministerio Público, peritos y policías, No se ha llegado ni siquiera a una coordinación cuando tenía que haber una articulación de esfuerzos para la acreditación del tipo penal del delito que se investiga y sobre todo la elaboración de una teoría del caso que pudiera explicar el hecho. La realidad es que en México, yo siempre hago una analogía como si quisiéramos construir una vivienda en un terreno, una casa en un terreno, tendría que llegar primero el arquitecto, observar el terreno, en su mente comenzar a trabajar, proyectar, comenzar a hacer inferencias, después llevarlas a un plano, instrumentarlo tal vez con un ingeniero que sabe de estructuras, de tiempos, de materiales, y luego ya comenzar a levantar los muros, columnas. Y en México estamos haciendo algo mal y siempre lo he señalado siempre que tengo la oportunidad. En México, los protocolos de actuación que tenemos, se llega el compañero primer respondiente, pues ya con que vais para procesar, levanta el indicio, procesa la escena y en ningún momento se hacen inferencias en el lugar mismo. Cuando se quiere hacer una inferencia de tipo conductual para explicar cómo ocurrieron los hechos, ya no hay nada, no hay nada que leer. Y es como si, haciendo esa analogía del arquitecto, primero llegara el compañero albañil, levantara muros, columnas, traves, y después invitamos al arquitecto y dice, ¿yo qué quieres que observe? Si ya empezaste a construir, ¿yo qué hago? Ese es un sesgo que tenemos en la investigación. Otro problema que yo observo ahorita en México, un área de oportunidad para nosotros, es que ante casos de criminalidad compleja, que es una realidad en nuestro país, nuestro sistema jurídico, nuestros protocolos de actuación están diseñados para que siempre exista un espacio físico donde materializar la investigación. Protocolo de primer respondiente, pues con capacidad de procesar. Pero ¿qué ocurre en esos casos en nuestro país, que es una realidad, en donde llega una persona a denunciar, mi hija desapareció, mi esposo no ha llegado, mi hijo no sé dónde está? ¿Dónde materializamos la investigación? ¿En qué punto nos constituimos como primer respondiente? Si no tengo un espacio físico donde realizarlo. La pregunta que siempre has hecho, ¿no hacemos investigación? Claro que se tiene que hacer investigación, pero la criminalística también, como se percibe en México, ya no da respuesta a esos fenómenos de criminalidad compleja. Se tienen que sumar otras disciplinas, otras áreas del conocimiento, las ciencias sociales, la estadística, con los nuevos modelos, nuevos métodos de investigación, porque en definitiva hay indicios que se materializan que la criminalística ya no considera. El doctor mencionaba ahorita de la epistemología. Yo considero que en este momento el indicio tiene que tener su propia epistemología, ya no puede depender de la criminalística. Hay indicios que se materializan que no son visibles, que no se perciben con los sentidos, sino que se tienen que interpretar. Y en un caso de desaparición forzada, de secuestro, eso es lo que va a orientar nuestra investigación. De ahí la necesidad que la ciencia forense se tiene que sumar desde el primer momento a la investigación del delito. Y algo también que yo siempre les he mencionado a mis alumnos, que cuando tengo la oportunidad de compartírselos, que llegan conmigo ya como parte de su formación académica, y siempre les menciono que ellos no van a ser peritos. Y no porque el perito se minimice su trabajo ni nada de eso, pero lo que siempre yo les digo a ellos es que el perito no investiga delitos, el Ministerio Público no investiga delitos, el perito investiga hechos y un hecho en particular de un todo. Aquí lo que se requiere es la capacidad de análisis, de síntesis, de poder elaborar y sobre todo crear una historia que dé cuenta de cómo ocurrieron los hechos, que persuaden el ánimo del juzgador, porque tan grave sería que únicamente nos remitiéramos al testimonio o grave sería que únicamente nos remitiéramos a la prueba indiciaria. Tenemos que trabajar en conjunto ambos. Y el papel del científico forense principalmente es ese, ser el analista, el que colabore tanto con el área ministerial, con el área policial, con el área pericial. Yo siempre les digo, ustedes no van a ser peritos, no quieren ser policías, sino quieren ser ministerios públicos. Ustedes van a ser expertos forenses que puedan acompañar a mi policía en actos de actuación, que me sugieran líneas de investigación, que me puedan a mí ayudar a contribuir a cómo yo poder dar una explicación al hecho que se investiga. Y otra oportunidad que tenemos también en nuestro país, que lo mencionamos nosotros aquí, es que se necesita que trabajemos de forma articulada. Un sistema que es nuestro sistema penal vigente, podríamos entender el sistema que es una serie de partes que gozan de individualidad, pero que en conjunto forman parte de un todo. Si viéramos un reloj y lo abriéramos, veríamos que dentro tiene una maquinaria, que sería un sistema. Si yo quito una pieza, pequeña o grande que sea, si la quito, el reloj deja de funcionar, pierde su función, porque esa parte que yo quité, que yo creí que era pequeña, era parte del sistema. En el sistema penal vigente que tenemos en México, Tan importante es el trabajo del compañero primer respondiente como el compañero perito, el policía con para procesar la teoría del Ministerio Público, y que si una de esas partes del sistema no funciona, nada va a funcionar. Necesitamos, como comenta el doctor, que los altos mandos se concienticen en la necesidad de que trabajemos en conjunto, que ya no se vea el trabajo de forma descoordinada. Comento, tengo más de 28 años trabajando en la policía. Cuando yo le sugiero al compañero perito, es una realidad, oye, ¿me puedes fijar esto? Tú no vas a decir cómo va a ser mi trabajo, que yo soy el experto, yo soy el perito. Te estoy pidiendo que fijes esto, porque yo de esto voy a hacer una inferencia. Yo voy a elaborar un informe que pueda explicar este hecho, pero si tú me ayudas, entonces no vamos a poder explicar nada. Cuando se elabora una teoría del caso por parte de una estrategia de defensa, la estrategia persigue 3 objetivos. Mi cliente no lo hizo, mi cliente lo hizo, pero tratando de buscar un excluyente, un atenuante, y el tercer objetivo que persigue es duda razonable. Acreditar la falta de algún elemento del tipo o fallas en el debido proceso. En México, en la última encuesta que tenemos de percepción de seguridad e impunidad, tenemos una impunidad de más del 91%. ¿Por qué? Porque todos los casos se nos caen, vaya, ni siquiera llegan a juicio, se quedan en la etapa intermedia, en donde la defensa evidencia los errores de la fiscalía a la hora de instrumentar la investigación, invoca el principio individuo pro reo, y lo que señala, ante la duda, ordénese la absoluta e inmediata liberación del reo. Todo se nos está cayendo en el proceso. Y de ese 9% que se llega a judicializar, solo el 0.4% se obtiene una sentencia favorable. La tasa de impunidad es altísima. Existe la necesidad de que nos articulemos, y como comentaba el doctor, cuando yo digo a los compañeros de ciencia forense, tenemos la necesidad de contar con una especializada, no en todos los casos de criminalidad, robos menores, robo de autoparte, esos no, pero sí se tiene que integrar un equipo multi e interdisciplinario en casos de criminalidad compleja, en donde el investigador en campo, que él no va a ser el especialista, diga aquí, en este caso es necesario que se integre un equipo de expertos forenses. Yo no lo puedo investigar. Es lo único que siempre he dicho, no que el compañero reciba la capacitación especializada para ciertos casos, pero que él sepa cuándo invocar a un equipo especializado que dé cuenta de esos fenómenos. No se puede investigar lo que no existe. Y en México una realidad es que no se reconoce el terrorismo, no se reconoce la criminalidad serial, la autoridad no lo quiere reconocer de que existe. Sabemos que por instrumentos protectores de derechos humanos internacionales, en donde si se acreditara la criminalidad serial, el Estado tendría que indemnizar a la víctima que resultara de un crimen serial o un criminal serial. Cuando nosotros en el campo decimos, este hecho está relacionado con aquel y podemos tratar un serial, dice no, no se trata de buscar el vínculo, no se buscan los patrones. Y siempre he dicho, tú no puedes investigar algo que desde la autoridad dicen que no existe, y es una realidad. En México tenemos terrorismo, no se ha querido reconocer, no se han hecho, no se han, digamos, integrado equipos que investiguen este fenómeno. Estamos viendo lo que está pasando con las minas en varios estados de la República, minas terrestres, cuando esas minas se prohibieron desde la Convención de Ginebra y las estamos materializando nuevamente en México. Entonces se requiere en realidad que los compañeros científicos forenses se integren a la investigación. Y bueno, algo que se ha avanzado en la Ciudad de México es que en el 2017, en nuestra legislación particular de la Ley Orgánica de la Fiscalía, en el artículo 47, por primera vez se señala el perfil del científico forense, que tiene que formar parte del cuadro de investigadores dentro de la Fiscalía. Al menos ya es un avance.
Ganancia.
Gracias.
Yo solo quisiera agregar antes de darle la palabra al doctor Crispino, que sí, totalmente de acuerdo, y con terrorismo nos está pasando lo que pasó con el tipo penal de desaparición de personas, ¿no? Que no se quería reconocer que existe, y pues sí que existe. Le damos la palabra, doctor, si tiene algún comentario. Frank.
Wow. Well, because it's not the length of your questions, it's the depth of your question, which is very interesting. Thank you so much. I'm not sure I will be able, because there's so many points you raised up. I will be able to answer too many of it, but I will be free to continue afterwards or during this period. First of all, sir, you said, and you were a little bit looking ashamed or something like that. In Mexico, what you described is everywhere in the world. Mexico is not an exception. About the silo effect, about the uncoordinated manner of investigation, about the non-recognition of science as a complete tool and not only as an accessory tool to investigation, etc., etc. So that's the first point. Second point, which is boarding the questions about what the position of the judicial police within ASIF or I don't know what exactly. Because of the depth of your questions, you answer yourself. That means there is no forensic science research. Afterwards, I will nevertheless distinguish, okay? But there couldn't be forensic science research without police collaboration, be it at operational level. I will come back on it with some limits, at least conceptual level. That means, for instance, police schools, etc. So first, because what could be proposed solutions are to be tested, that they could be better tested with police officers and then with the feedbacks, okay? But also understanding the problem you're facing, I will come back on it. You are the best position to know it. So if it doesn't come back, that means it's not the academics in their Ethereum bulb that will understand that, oh, now that's, by the way, that's what happened in many academic work. Okay, when you find we discussed with my colleagues many times. When I see, for instance, the last American paper about artificial intelligence saying that fingerprints are not unique, I never saw such a stupid paper in my life. Okay, more or less not what it was in the paper itself, but that's something else. Or phenotyping of eyes, and yes, there are some interest, but not the one which is claimed. So people don't understand. I saw police officers in Quebec. Oh, the Americans are so good. So we go phenotyping in their place. It got lost. What is the result by the end? What is the success by the end? And one of the problems we have with forensic science, in research, in academics, is that, when we have a positive hit or when we have a success, immediately we published on it. That is the bias of confirmation. Many times we don't have any feedback. That means in lots of time, on my point of view, it's a negative feedback because we have no negative, okay? But we never say that. And so you can only be winners in forensic science, correct? Sometimes the police officers themselves don't like me so much because I say it is the most comfortable work on earth. Say, oh, no, sir, you don't know what it is. I think, yes, a little bit, but well. It is the most comfortable work because if I'm a SOCO, if I found a trace, if I found a print, well, it's a trace, right? Okay. If I found a print, if I want to trace, I will report to my authority. I found 2, I will report and say, I'm good, né? If I found 3, I'm good. Can I have an award? If I found none, there were none. And no one is able, and don't say that the guy is bad, no way. But no one is able to tackle this issue, say, there were none. Why? Did we search at the wrong place? Didn't we understand what we were facing? Did our inference or were they incorrect? There is no one to tackle these issues, correct? So that's why I say it is the most comfortable place, work in the world. You can never be loser, correct? Right. So coming back to what you said, what we need is collaboration with police. You said also, that's it. And that is the 6th principle of the Sídney Declaration. Once again, the Sídney Declaration, from my point of view, offers a basis for what you require. So it means this collaboration and how we can build this collaboration. That is the goal of the Sídney Declaration. That we are context dependent. Interpretation is context dependent. And I don't speak interpretation in the courtroom. I speak interpretation during investigation and so on, which is at the core of my research, by the way. Okay. That means when we tackle all these issues, then we need research, intercultural, intersectorial, interdisciplinary research. So where is the best place on the world for making such intercultural, interdisciplinary, intersectorial research? It's university. That's why they were created. That's why it cost a lot for the taxpayers, correct? So you had the chance, that's a little bit why we're here, you had the chance that there was kind of initiative which was led in UNAM for Mexican specificities that I fully understand, including financially speaking, we spoke yesterday about it, etc. Okay, but that means afterwards, it is up to you to make it alive and to go forward. So the Sídney Declaration, coming back once again, it's only a proposal to help you frame this kind of relationship, not only within the academics, but what you will define as academic. As I explained with my CV, I'm not a professor since the age of 25, 23, or I don't know, well, it would be very young, by the way, but I'm not a professor after postdoc, and then I become, like you, and by the way, I had 30 years in the force before I joined, correct? I don't say that people who don't have this kind of background are bad. I am very good friends of it, and thanks God, but at least I'm in a position now to express and to understand the problem that police forces have, that they are not able to express themselves. So we need these interconnections. And for instance, Switzerland is a very good example, because graduate and postgraduate students from Lausanne now is brand new, 40 years. So it's new, 40 years, okay? Now are very well incorporated in forces. And you know, in Switzerland, each canton has its own legislation, etc. So they're incorporated. Some of them are becoming even investigative judge, etc., because the inquisitorial system still works in Switzerland, okay? Some of them still are police officers or investigative judges, but still researchers at university, correct? You are only at the beginning in Mexico. So that's your challenge. It's not mine, it's your challenge, by the way, correct? So that's the first answer. Then I will come back to, nevertheless, on the pessimistic side. On the pessimistic side, and you said we are context dependent, and you are structurally and institutionally dependent. You won't change the world like that because it should be changed. Well, you did it a little bit because you decided to change from the inquisitorial to the accusatorial system. That would be a big change for you, but something else. But that's a decision, a legal decision, let's say. But societies don't evolve like that. And as you said, you enter in the system which already exists, and you have to let it change from inside. And making it change from inside, you won't do it in 10 years. I would be very pessimistic. I cited Kuhn, Thomas Kuhn. I'm a great fan of Thomas Kuhn, the structure of scientific revolutions. And Kuhn is very violent. He's very tough. He says that for a new paradigm to become the norm, the tenets of the older paradigm, that means the persons who believed in the older paradigm, at that time who are at the head of the system, and that's Kuhn, it's very, very tough, should die. They should disappear for the new paradigm to exist. Correct? I don't say that you have to kill your authority, etc. That's not what I say. What I say is that you need time and the system will change, don't change like that. But you can help him change. You can help him change. That means by first, by expressing your problems. I will come back to the police problem and the academic problem, which are different, nevertheless. Expressing your problem by recruiting persons that will enforce the way you want to go in the right direction. Generally, when they enter into your service, if they are graduated, for instance, I will take this example, it's after you adapt it from UNAM or from another university in Mexico, etc. They shouldn't be, and they won't be the head immediately, but you know that if you're right, in 20 years, they will be the head. So you have to prepare the next generation. And you have to prepare the next generation at academics, and you have to prepare the next generation also in the police forces. That's all, right? Then I come to the, nevertheless, one point of fiction I could identify. When I say that the police time is different from the academic time. Rapidly, because your heart is on the police side, even if you're very open and you want this collaboration with the academics, correct? But you want immediate results. And immediate results doesn't belong to the academics. That's one of the problems. Then you should accept it, that we need to formalize, to understand, to test, to make errors, and then to find solutions. But finding solutions, moreover, because we work on litigious, on crimes, on sociology. Popper was saying that social sciences were not sciences, correct? So if you want to work on it, the solutions you could have should find it's not the academics who will find a tactical solution. So what I said, the academic could propose you a general framework. Once again, you come to the Sydney Declaration, and within this general framework, we know that afterwards you can conjugate and you can find solutions through the general framework. So, for instance, immediately when we were speaking, I immediately took the book I always have with me. It's in French, unfortunately, but you will understand. Sydney Declaration is the framework that we propose as academics with that's pretentious, but lots of experience. Not experts. We never use the term experts. I agree with you. You are expert for someone else. You never are expert by yourself. So something else, correct? But there is also a terrific book for me. It's Snap, which was just published last November. This one is Tracologie, la police scientifique à la tracologie. Well, I'm pretty sure in Spanish you can translate it very easily. Okay, and it was written by Olivier Ribaud, who is from the University of Lausanne. And why I say it is a terrific book, because yes, of course, it is about forensic science, singular, the one we expressed it in the Sydney Declaration. But it's more than that. It is about the science of the trace. And forensic science is only a part of science of the trace. And then within the science of the trace, understanding the trace, understanding how you can use the trace, even how you can voluntarily misuse the trace, what is called provoked traces, okay? The power of the trace itself. If we have scientists who understand that, then after lots of problems, abduction, killings, human trafficking, etc., it's only, as explained, application of the general view of what we have. So I will take an example. I would come from the typically professor, mastermind. We don't understand what he said, so but apply it. What does it mean? I have no solutions, and I won't solve your case for sure. I won't have this pretension. But could we sit, or could you sit with scientists who are traceologists? You understand what it means, not forensic scientists, but in the way that they are scientists of the trace, and try to understand on an intercultural front, with criminologists, with sociologists, with police officers, with lawyers. Yes, lawyers, but lawyers want to be more open that only, no, it's written like that, okay? Just understand within the problem I face, for instance, abduction, correct? What kind of traces, if I understand the way our adversaries, the way the cartels, the way our enemies are doing it, the organized criminals are doing it, how are they organized? And that's not the forensic scientists who know it. It's criminologists, it's police officers, etc. How do they practice it? We have the idea that they could practice it. It's inference, it's reasoning under certainty, but you are experts or you are sapitors, right? Okay. Then what kind of traces should exist if you are right? And then you get it to the forensic scientist. Are you able to find this kind of traces? And it's not only physical traces, ballistic physical traces. It could be digital traces, biological traces, etc. Traces very difficult, but we have to change the way of seeing this kind of traces, and that's forensic science, correct? Then come back with a solution for it, try to apply it. Probably we will begin to solve more cases than solve. We won't solve all cases, because moreover, the adversary will continue to evolve with his modus operandi, correct? But at least you have a red thread to try to be more efficient and to be more collaborative and not rocking in silo, as you said. Am I understandable? Right, okay. So that's a model, of course. That's a model. It's not only a theoretical model, it's a model which is already applied. It's applied in Australia, for instance, because Australia changed its mode of forensic intelligence, as it's called forensic intelligence, okay? In France, the French gendarmerie, that is where it's emerged, the criminal intelligence with the forensic laboratory to create the forensic intelligence hub, okay? It's also done in many police forces in Switzerland. Intercontinental, by the way. So we know that the model works, but you need to have academic support and to distinguish research, which is not the same time than the police response itself. Did I answer your question?
Yeah. Okay. Well, I just want to say something very quickly. Here in our program, we have some different kinds of professors. The professors that who have an academic profile, and the professors who have the academic profile and the plus that of the experience of being in the professional work, and I think that they always have the possibility to exchange their knowledge, and this is very useful for our students. I think it's really important to have both sides of this kind of knowledge. Well, we are in the time, but we have 2 more questions from Facebook or Zoom, I don't know. And I suggest to read these questions very quickly and let Professor Crispino to answer, so we can finish this session. But we will have the opportunity, if you want to, if the people who is here, to talk to Dr. Crispino a little more, if you have time and if he wants to. Okay. So let's listen those questions.
Tenemos 2 preguntas. Voy a hacer una primero por cuestión de tiempo. Sí. Bueno, la primera es si cree que sería importante implementar un consultor forense judicial, dado que no todos los servidores públicos conocen la interpretación de dictámenes, así como de peritajes. O sea que si una persona con ese perfil sería útil en el sistema mexicano. Y la segunda es, ¿cómo visualiza usted que las coordinaciones de investigación forense podrían independizarse de la Fiscalía en México? Nada más.
Could you just repeat the second question?
You.
The second question, because
¿Cómo visualiza usted que sería el proceso de autonomía, de independencia de las coordinaciones de investigación forense de las fiscalías en México? ¿Cómo podría pasar eso? Preguntas simples.
I will first answer the first question. For the first question, I would say the answer is very easy. It's a big yes. It's a big yes. That means it is very important to begin to think how to integrate forensic advisors at the right level. The question was not asked, but at the right level in police forces or investigation units, or at the command level, etc. Depending, and I don't have enough information about it. Depending of the organization of the police forces, which are certainly dependent from one police force to the others, correct? At one condition, nevertheless, and I will come back to one of my snapshots, is one. And that's where the revolution is. If you want to integrate a forensic advisor, even if you put a police uniform on him for status, bylaws or whatever, that's what happens in some cantons in Switzerland. The scientists which are qualified from the University of Lausanne, some of them stay civilians, so some others becomes police officers, sworn police officers. Okay, in the French Gendarmerie, for instance, where I come from, it is unthinkable to have civilians serving in the French force. So you have to be military officers. Well, I was military officer before becoming forensic scientist, so that's both. But nevertheless, for this person, it should be clear if he's only a subordinate of the police force, or if he's a scientist collaborating with them. And that's where the revolution is. Because it's very difficult also for the police force, which are hierarchically organized, military organized, etc., to say that even because due to the wage of the person, so you recruit it as officers with the rank of lieutenant, because that's the wage for this kind of scientist. But he's a lieutenant like the others, and he will be happy to be that. But his role is special within the force. His role is to be an advisor and not to be a subordinate. Well, he's a subordinate, by the way. but not that's not the first position is not subordinate. And that's very good to let understand. It needs authorities which are very smart. Correct? So that's the first question. Answering. I think I answered the first question. For the second one, I'm pretty sure it's a question from a lawyer. So no, yes, that's it. Pretty sure, because you want the politically correct answer, or you want my own thinking?
Your own.
Okay, well, okay. So my inference was wrong, but I think you better search, you better question my own position. I think it would be well, it's very easy on a pure legal aspect to create position, status, etc., which makes them independent, but which is only hypocrisy. And if you understand principle 7 of the Sídney Declaration, that forensic science is context dependent. Okay, so what means context dependent? Once again, it is up to the various systems to adapt it to their situation. Okay, and then I won't come to the Mexican aspect itself. But that's why I thought I inferred so that it was a lawyer, because that's exactly what, for instance, I heard with the American colleagues who never apply it, by the way. Okay, that we should be independent. That's what the NAS report said, but it's never applied. The only one country who applied it and which completely collapsed is the United Kingdom. In 2012, the United Kingdom so dismantled completely the forensic science services. The forensic science service at that time was, on my point of view, and I will turn to my colleagues if they agree, but my point of view, until the 2010 year for sure, for me, the forensic science service was the best service in the world, providing both forensic services, but also relevant researches. That means dedicated to the field, but fundamental, right? And neocons capitalism, so which arrived with the Tories in England, and we know where it led now with the Brexit. Okay, decided that it would be cheaper to privatize all the stuff because the market will decrease the prices, right? And instead of that, the big ones hit the small ones. There are monopoly of forensic science providing services, which became very expensive. Police can't pay anymore the service, and there is no research anymore because they are not paid for making research. So what happened is that the police forces, and that's one of my last paper, it is very naive. It is completely nonsensical to think that by law or whatsoever, by law that you will make it independent and the police won't need to have scientific, forensic, whatever you call it, we'll say Kirk. That means traces need someone to address it. And investigation comes from Latin investigium. Vestigium in Latin means trace. Investigare, investigium, means looking into the traces. So you need to have specialist investigators. Investigators are looking into traces. And because we are 21st century, because we have lots of means of traceability of our populations, etc., after there was problem of ethics, problem of deontology, and that's why we got laws in modern and democratic countries, correct? But the job would be all the time the same, looking into trace. So if you want to make it independent from police services, from prosecution services, do you understand what means investigation, guy? So it's both hypocritical and it's naive. So that's why it's not politically correct. Correct?
I just want to say, have you finished? Yes. I just want to say something. Here in Mexico, we had 2 years ago a sentence from the Inter-American Court of Justice, and they said that Mexico needs to have their forensic science services independent from the government. That's it. Well, but we have to finish this session. We are very happy to have Dr. Professor Frank Crespino here with us, and we want to take this opportunity to tell him and tell all the equipment who made the Sídney Declaration that we have analyzed that declaration here in the NACIF, and we agree with that declaration. So we add to the declaration, and I have to read a letter that I have just signed. Is for Professor Frank Crespino. And it says, in my role of director of the National School for Forensic Science of the National Autonomous University of Mexico, I am writing to express my endorsement of the Sídney Declaration, a pivotal document that, among other things, underscores the importance of scientific rigor and ethical awareness in the field of forensic science. The principles of the declaration crystallized and address several concerns that led in 2013 to the creation of the Forensic Science Undergraduate Program, upon which the school was founded, a program characterized by its interdisciplinary and generalist approach to the investigation of crime. At the National School of Forensic Science, our mission centers on providing a comprehensive education in the law and the sciences, both natural and social, that will equip our students with the knowledge, skills, and values necessary to achieve professional excellence in the field of forensic science. The Sídney Declaration, by emphasizing the significance of complexity, transparency, and impartiality in forensic investigations, aligns itself with the school's conception of forensic science, its philosophical foundations, and educational objectives, and the firm belief that the development of the discipline depends on more than technical and organizational improvements. Therefore, I am pleased to endorse the Sídney Declaration on behalf of the National School of Forensic Sciences. Its principles are mirrored in the education provided by our instructors and the research projects conducted by our faculty. And we will certainly continue to integrate and advocate its principles in our educational programs, research endeavors, and collaborations with government partners, as well as publicize them at every opportunity. By doing so, we hope to continue to the advancement of forensic science and the promotion of justice through scientifically sound and ethically responsible practices. I have to say that all the professors of complete time have signed this letter with me, and we are going to be able to receive more signatures from our professors if you want to, and we are going to publish the Sídney Declaration in Spanish. We have made the translation in our page, so it will be able to its consult to consult for their consult. So on the review, and we want to have some seminars where we can discuss about its content and their principles. So this is the paper, this is the letter, and all the contents.
Me knows that, well, here I'm quite troubled. I didn't expect that. I will, of course, even if professors are standalone and independent and autonomous and all the stuff around professors, yes. But I will report, of course, to our own university. But the person which interests me, and I will report is the all the authors of the Sídney Declaration, who are worldwide leaders in forensic science, and for sure that's a big hit. And I know that beforehand, I didn't need that, but what we saw with UNAM and the NSF, what you are building, still building, and you have lots of work to still continue to build. But well, you are on the right tracks. And for me, that's a confirmation you are on the right tracks, but I'm biased, but we are all biased. No, that's, it's terrific. Thanks so much. And long life to NSF. Best luck, and hopefully we will do a strong collaboration with you.
Thank you so much. Well, and we are giving for Professor Frank Crispino recognition for this speech. Thank you so much. And thank you all the people who is connected by Zoom and in our social media, and here all. Thank you so much for your presence.
Thanks so much.